Hi there. I think this video will be about two things: about Germany and about well, oil companies. Germany is now being smeared, I think, by calling it Fourth Reich, reminding people of the Holocaust. I think that's completely ridiculous. You know, calling them Nazis. That sentiment is just not there anymore. I talked about Rotterdam in my video with a colorful camera. I still don't know what's wrong with it, but Germany bombed Rotterdam and bombed many other places. Germany itself was hugely, it's like basically flattened by the English. Many cities and lots of firestorms. We had a firestorm in Rotterdam, I forgot to mention that, which means that you get so much fire that it really, the heat is so intense that it starts, let's say, consuming everything, and it's just lots of people died. You had that in German cities. That's a horrible thing to, and of course you had special bombs that would create those firestorms. That's horrible. War is horrible. It's destructive. It's completely useless. It's something that you shouldn't try to be doing. And Germany isn't that country anymore that it was at the beginning of the Second World War. And they're not Nazis. They can be right wing, and they can be, let's say, xenophobic. Why? Because it's a landlocked country, and simply that's the attitude that people can have there. If nothing, that's in the east of Holland, you get the same attitude, and in neighborhoods where people don't leave the neighborhood a lot, you get the same attitude. That's prejudices and generalizations and racist. That's just human. That's more a sign of lack of opportunity and education than of a country. You know, America was doing great. Nobody was complaining, and now Germany is doing great, and suddenly it's a fascist Nazi Fourth Reich conquering Europe and all that stuff. It does have a number of qualities that I think are important to notice. It is a very old country. It used to be all kinds of little states and territories. And Otto von Bismarck, who was one of the first, basically the one that created Germany as a whole, actually tried to prevent its creation and its consolidation for some time, because he was reasoning that if that would happen, these Germans that were quite industrious, because they were all landlocked, they had to deal with the resources they had to be inventive and smart about what they had, because they couldn't really go to the neighbors, because the neighbor was doing exactly the same thing. They were basically like stuffed in this territory, in this let's say land mass. He said, well, if they would consolidate, they would soon enough start considering themselves superior to their neighbors, and that would probably let's say motivate a war, some type of conquering movement, some kind of occupation of extra territory, which makes sense if you say, well, like, I'm a farmer, I work my land, I have a neighbor, he's lazy, he doesn't do anything with his land. If I had his land, I could farm it and I could have more. I have more wealth for me, more wealth for him, he could work at my farm, and that would be fine. So let me go over to him and ask him to have his farm, because I can use it. And of course he doesn't like that, so then I have to tell him to fuck off and leave the land to me, because I can use it more productively than he can. And that type of attitude is like I say, it's a continuum between taking care of yourself and then trying to get what you need in order to take care of yourself better or in a more safe, secure way. And he saw that and he tried to prevent it, and basically the whole formula of Germany is that you have to burden it so that it doesn't become, so that it doesn't start viewing itself as so superior to other countries that it no longer empathizes with other countries, so that it's safe. Okay, we are Germany, we're always trying to be smart, we're always trying to take care of ourselves, and the neighbors, they don't do it, so, you know, fuck them. Like, you can be a very good cook and you like cooking for everybody and everybody's happy, and at a certain point you think, okay, why am I always cooking? Let them cook themselves and or find out how to do that, and otherwise they just eat beans, and you know, I'm no longer going to tire myself. So you have to kind of keep the equality going, and that's actually one of the governing principles has been for Germany since Otto von Bismarck. You can't blame them if you generalize over all Germans. You can't blame them for having been in the situation that they were in, this landlocked area, and having developed some kind of culture that was after quality and after technology. And they're quite nerdy. If you've ever been to a party or something like that in Germany, then the topics are usually quite serious. Like, while in Holland it's not. Amongst when I was a student, I would go to parties in Keulen and Aachen and stuff like that, and then you talk seriously all night about whatever. It's just like people try to be right, and we had a lot less of that in Holland. Like, that was quite unique. And this, I have to basically build in a little apology for my generalizations here. But it's to build up a little counterweight to the generalization or the utter lie or smear of a Fourth Reich Nazi Holocaust environment. That's just simply trigger words for people that are too lazy to find out things for themselves. You know, visit Germany. I visited America, I visited Germany, I visited France, I visited, that's more easy if you're in Europe, and there's much more difference in Europe, so you can actually notice differences and you become more sensitive to them. Then I guess if you are in Australia or in New Zealand or in the US, where things are a lot very similar across the country. So that's Germany. I think they're doing good, and if you allow them to manage more or less Europe, then they'll do a better job than anybody else. And what they've done is provide the technology and the knowledge and the experience with renewable energies to Spain, to Portugal, to Italy to a certain extent. And they, I think, probably also would do it to Greece and Turkey. Really, solar power plant, they have fully continuously running solar power plants in Spain. That means 24 hours a day you get electricity for 100,000 households. So the whole intermittency with solar power has been beaten. It's no longer on, and the power plant of 100,000 people is on 25 acres of land. That's not very much. It's perfect, Spain has it. Do you wonder, let's say, question, could Spain build all the parts it needs to build a solar power plant in Spain? Well, no, probably some of them come from Germany, but otherwise, yes. So, is Spain destined to be a wealthy, prosperous country, other than the ravages of climate change that will basically touch everybody? Yes, renewable energy can make Spain prosperous. No carbon needed. Robo-economic situation. And Germany did that. The trains in Spain are German trains. So, why wouldn't you? Like, say, Spain needs a rail system. It's a huge country. So, here, trains. Spain did the same with China. They provided technology for high-speed rail, like, say, the 350 kilometers an hour type of train. And after they did that, China is suspected of having killed the experts in Germany. What happened? They were on a little cart on the testing ring, and there was an obstacle, and the cart crashed. So 16 of their, let's say, experts on these type of rail systems died, and that was basically the technology base, the knowledge base that they had in Germany. So then it was Chinese, but Germany recovered. China recently had a huge accident where they had to bury one of the trains that was collided because they had these high rail system, these like concrete tracks, and there was a collision there, and they simply had to bury the whole wagon. So you can see on the pictures there's an area of the ground that's been dug up and covered over. Why? Well, probably because the people in that train were smashed and didn't look very pretty, and they didn't want to have that floating around in the cyberspace. And now China openly acknowledges that it needs Germany for its technology. I can tell a little other story about that, and that is I used to work at a company that built harbor cranes in Shanghai, because they decided to make all their cranes in China. And they're huge installations, 100-meter high, and there's a crane driver in it. And it's for hauling up the containers from big container ships. And it's a dangerous, it's a huge thing to build. And the Chinese people there were going about that activity with such risk and danger and sloppiness that it was just scary. You know, they would simply, there would be no discipline, or there would be no safety standards, and they were just what they needed in order to make it safe, because you can build very detailed, so this is a long video, I'm sorry about that, and I'll probably not talk about oil companies anymore, but if you have a crane for hauling 40-foot containers, then you have a steel drum with a diameter of about 3 meters or something like that on the top of the crane, and the cable wraps around that drum as it's being hoisted up, and that's going really fast. That's like, although I've been in on the top of the crane, and you have this like this engine room, and there's an electrical engine, and then there's this drum, and it's scary fast that this drum is going, and if it's not circular, then it will vibrate, and the whole crane will vibrate, and it will be amplified, and the crane will crash. And they didn't care about making these drums right. So you kind of, here's your crane, Mr. LA Harbor takes some of these cranes, and let's say the booth that the crane driver is supposed to sit in fell off one of these cranes, not with a crane driver in it, but. So then one of the managers had to go to LA to show that he was willing to go to LA and visit it and try to do something about it. And guess what type of people went to to China in order to check things? Germans. Because Germans think they are serious. And then it worked, or more or less. There's lots of stories to tell about that. I think it was really amazing. Also, some guys from the Rotterdam harbor, some people with real experience that are simply, you know, that I think that it's also, I guess any country can have people with that attitude, but you have to grow up in a culture where that attitude is appreciated somehow, where you basically appreciate it for telling it how it is, and not taking bullshit, and looking at stuff and seeing it for what it is. And where do you learn that? Well, in a situation where you don't have other choice than dealing with what you have. And that's what Germany had for a long time, so they have that culture. In China apparently not so much. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the oil companies, but I'll just leave it here. I think that we should be very happy and supportive of Europe, and this sounds really stupid, and not talk about Nazis and talk about Holocaust, because there's no plan to assassinate anybody. I think there is an attitude towards Greece that now that it's become a den of bankers and banker abuse, it's good to cut it off, to get it out of the system, and then help Greece at the same time. So support the Greece people, but not the Greece government, until the Greece government is something that the Greece people like again. And one of the things that is symptomatic of that is that the Greek police is saying that they will arrest IMF bankers when they come into the country. The police is saying that. You know, if the police and the justice system are going after anybody that they perceive is hurtful or detrimental to the country, and is trying to basically destroy or reduce it, or turn it into chaos, or make it our, that's good. You know, what else would you like them to do? And it's good that IMF bankers are not, you know, beyond consideration. We do have a problem, I think, in Europe with the EMS which is kind of a new institution that's going to do bookkeeping for all countries, and that's completely beyond the law. That's not that the law to start that process has not been started yet, but and I'm wondering who's in charge. And there's videos about it, so I'd say watch that. It's an interesting situation. I think that Europe has a good chance of actually making a transition to a renewable powered culture and economy and society much quicker than the US has, because it's better organized to do it, and that we will be lucky ones out, because you know we're just more used to dealing with ourselves, and we don't have all the gang ho blink type effects that you see in the US. But I'll just keep it to saying that think again if you want to talk about the Fourth Reich, and also wonder about the person that talks about the Fourth Reich and about Holocaust and about Nazism and fascism or something like that in Germany, a conquering, dominating force. Why does somebody say such a thing? I think it's unjustified. But anyway, this is a really boring video, but I had to talk about it. I think I'm quite happy the way things are going at the moment.